is Ted Henley. Welcome to The Drive on Chqr Calgary, 107 FM, 770 AM. It's not often we talk about something today that took place about this time yesterday, but we're making the exception this afternoon because you continue to talk about this. The Danielle Smith handshake with Justin Trudeau. That was awkward. Justin Trudeau reaching out his hand. Danielle Smith extends hers, but hesitates and drops her hand down low. JT on the other side seems to sense what's going on, lunging his hand forward, firmly grabbing the Premier's now limp hand, brings it in close to his hip, and completes the handshake. If there was only a handshake coach out there to help. Well, to help us analyze the handshake, Robyn Braley is joining us this afternoon. Robyn's a communication and body language expert, a brand specialist, a writer, also a speaker. And we've talked with Robyn in the past to examine the body language of political leaders, for example, around election times. And Robyn, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Ted. It's great to be on the show. I have to add, in full disclosure,
yes,
to you, the AM audience, and the all-new FM audience, I'm also a political junkie, which may or may not factor into this conversation.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up, Robyn. I appreciate that. So what's, what caught your eye as a body language kind of expert in the handshake yesterday?
First of all, a little background. Body language, or nonverbal communication as we call it, is a series of indicators. Now, there's no one thing that's definitive. It's a number of things. So controlling body language can be the difference between being taken seriously or not. Strong body language speaks to confidence, credibility, and trust. Now, this was Premier Smith's big moment, her first time on the national stage. She needed to look like she belonged. Body language is quite a clinical process.
Yeah.
Now, what we do is look at posture, stance, head motion, facial expressions, eye contact, whether they're active listening or not, and of course, hand gestures. Now, Danielle Smith's big thing in getting elected was that she would and could stand up to Justin Trudeau in the Ottawa machine. Now, her goal was to look like she could take on Goliath and that she belonged as Premier. I don't think she quite did that. Based on 30 seconds, she did not look like the leader that she wanted to look like. Now, there's only one purpose in the photo op, and you alluded to it, and that is to produce a 10-second video clip or a great still photo for the evening news, social media, and media websites, and of course, their own political propaganda machine. So you only have to do the right things for about 15 seconds to accomplish your goal. Now, media photographers and videographers call this a grip and grin. The global video that I watched was about 30 seconds long and really gave insight. Now, her stance, Danielle looked unsure of herself. Her body positioning communicated a lack of confidence. She was not firmly planted on her feet. In fact, if you look carefully, she sways back and forth a bit at the beginning, which is a sign of nervousness. You mentioned in the introduction her face. I thought she had a pained look on her face. There was no sense of enthusiasm or anticipation. Most of the time, she did not smile, which was in direct contrast to Mr. Warm and Cuddly, Mr. Trudeau. When you shake hands, and this is networking 101, you stand firmly and lean slightly forward towards the person you're shaking hands with. If you look at Trudeau, that's exactly what he did. In fact, he took half a step towards her as he leaned, which signaled warmth and inviting. Now, simultaneously, you extend your hand for what I call a power shake. The other person will naturally mirror your move and extend their hand. Now, Danielle looked surprised, like she looked like, okay, this was new. Where did this come from? She was very tentative in lifting her hand, which was horizontal. In other words, her palm was down, And that can be a sign that you're hiding something rather than being vertical, which is a normal handshake position. Trudeau reached way down, as you mentioned, to take her hand. And that move made him look very dominant. Trudeau is a master of communicating through the media. So he looked directly at the camera and, wait for it, Ted, he grinned. Danielle didn't seem to be sure where to look and gave a brief smirk rather than a smile. But that's only part of the story.
The other half is what, Robyn? I mean, what else did you pick up on? Because you've given us a lot of analysis there. Is there more?
I watched a couple of clips, and when I put them together, the sit-down was also revealing. When they sat down after the shake, there were two things that jumped out at me. Shadow moves indicate a feeling of nervousness. If you watch the full clip, when they sat down, Danielle looked uncomfortable in the way she was sitting and periodically fidgeted with her hands. The Prime Minister looked warm and engaging, while the Premier looked cold and detached. Now, active listening is a really big part of any conversation. That sends a message of respect and engagement with the other person's ideas. You don't have to like them, just consider them and let the person know that you're hearing what they're saying. When Danielle was speaking, Trudeau turned and looked at her while nodding his head occasionally and a bit of a smile. In contrast, when he was speaking, Danielle seemed to be looking around the room and was not tuned in to what he was saying. I feel that Premier Smith missed a great opportunity to position herself as a strong, credible Canadian leader representing Alberta on the national stage.
Now, in the Premier's defense, this was her first time representing the province, face to face with the Prime Minister. Can we just chalk it up to nervousness, do you think, Robyn?
I would think that, I suspect, I should put it that way, that maybe her communications people didn't prepare her properly. Ted, I have been interviewed by Danielle a few times when she was on 770 CHQR.
Yeah.
And what I saw was very different from those interviews. In those interviews, one of Danielle's strengths was being conversational and engaging you. You didn't think about the mic. You didn't think about the fact that thousands of people were listening to you. There was eye contact. She would listen actively. She would make a couple of notes as you make statements that would lead into her next question. So the Danielle Smith that I saw yesterday in those clips was very different from the Danielle Smith that I know personally from having been interviewed by her.
And do you think going forward, the next time that she's meeting, the premiers and territorial leaders and eventually the Prime Minister again, you're expecting a different type of performance, so to speak?
Well, absolutely. And it all comes down to coaching, to rehearsing, and to understanding the implications of what your body language is or isn't saying.
Yeah. What advice would you be giving the Premier, Robyn?
Well, that would be it, is to get some coaching. Now, she's been in the media, so I would say that she knows better. And I am thinking that there was some kind of context going on around that interview, something that happened before, because she did not seem focused. She did not seem like her head was into that brief 15-second photo op where she needed to look good and look strong.
Yeah, that's a good point, Robyn. Thanks for your insights this afternoon, by the way. I do appreciate this. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And if the listeners would like to learn more about body language, just Google "Brand It with Robyn. Do you know what your body is saying?" And I've got a post there that will provide further insight.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Robyn. Have a good afternoon.
Well, thank you, Ted.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's Robyn Braley. Robyn Braley is a body language expert, also a communication expert, a brand specialist, writer, and speaker, and he's often chatted with by people like me and Premier Danielle Smith when she was a radio show host to talk about body language, of political leaders. What are your thoughts on the handshake? 403-974-84